This episode was made possible thanks to generous supporters on Patreon. Hello everyone and welcome to yet another episode of Asking Alexandra, which is my YouTube series where you ask questions and I answer them. If you want your questions answered by me, please write them down in the comments below and I will do my best to answer them in one of the next videos. And of course, if you like what I do, consider supporting me on Patreon up here or on the link down in the description, where you can get access to all kinds of interesting materials, exclusive content, downloads and tabs and other interesting things for as low as $3 per month. Now, starting with the first question, who are your favorite musicians and or biggest musical influences? Well, this is a question that never gets old, and the truth is that my influences change quite a bit over time, and it's like moving in waves, and sometimes I go back to things that I've been listening to a lot. Many years ago I rediscovered them and I managed to find interesting details that I haven't heard before, and there are of course influences that are staying there all the time, and they're like my personal classics. And I think that number one in my classics list would be Pink Floyd, because this is the band that I could always, no matter where, no matter in what type of mood, or no matter if I'm happy or angry or in difficult situation, or no matter what, I could always enjoy them, and I could say that it's one of my biggest influences ever. And regarding bands, it's difficult to say what else, because they pretty much change over time, and I can't really, well, probably Marillion and Yes and Rush are other bands that I could say that I could listen all the time, no matter what. Of course, other bands that influenced me quite a lot, but I haven't listened to them so much as the ones that I mentioned right now are of course Dream Theater and other classic progressive bands like Jethro Tull and Genesis and Gentle Giant and King Crimson, and also some other probably not so much progressive bands like Asia. And currently I'm very much inspired by Opeth and Riverside, and these are bands that I listen quite often lately, along with Jethro Tull and Genesis. Regarding the guitar players, the ones that I could say that are always there to fascinate me are Jason Becker, Marty Friedman, Yngwie Malmsteen, Steve Vai, Joe Satriani, Pat Metheny, Django Reinhardt, John Petrucci. Also, especially lately, I'm very inspired by Bumblefoot and his approach to guitar is extraordinary, like very avant-garde and progressive thinking when it comes to guitar. Of course, these are just a few of my influences, because I could never say that I'm just stuck to a certain number of artists and I just stay there. I always explore new music and I listen to all kinds of things, starting from world music through jazz and through pop and fusion and sometimes experimental music to rock and metal and things like Meshuggah, for example. And I try to find something that I enjoy, something interesting, inspiring every type of music that I listen to. So there are just very few genres that I can't really find anything there. I would like to ask you about guitar care, especially when you have several guitars and other precious equipment. How do you take care of the health and beauty of them? Is there any special way, special wax oil from ads, or you have your own tactic and schedule? I'm interested because I read at several places that, an example, if someone plays on a daily basis, he should change guitar strings every 2 weeks, which sounds weird. Well, I use such products like probably every professional musician and not only uses, and I use the product of Lizard Spit, which is not so known brand, but they make a very wide range of products for all kinds of instruments, not just guitars but also drums, cymbals and equipment, and a lot of products that could be even used in guitar repairs and so forth. So they're quite useful, they're not expensive, and I think that they are very high quality. And I will put the links in the description. And I think that part of the musicianship is to take care of your instruments, because I mean these are extensions of yourself when you're serious musician, so you really need to take care of them. And regarding the strings, I'm guilty of not changing strings so often. One of the reasons is that I'm not a touring musician, at least not at the moment, and I'm not an aggressive player, and I take care of my instruments, of course, and I clean them, and of course this prolongs also the string life. And I change strings like once every couple of months, but the thing about 2 weeks, this is pretty much because the brightness and the sound of a brand new string pretty much expires around after 2 weeks. So I think this is one of the reasons people do that. And of course, if you're on tour and it's quite heavy stress to the strings, not just because of playing but also because of humidity, temperature and things like that, and they just worn out the strings very quickly. So from this perspective, yeah, but yeah, I personally change them really like once 2 months or something like that. I'd be curious to learn more about your keyboard playing, how you got started, who inspired you, how you developed your playing style, etc. As a matter of fact, the first instrument that I ever touched in my life was actually piano, and I was like 4 or 5 years old, and it was a piano by a neighbor, and I remember that I was just pressing probably F and G as far as I could remember, and it was very interesting experience because it was both mesmerizing and somehow intimidating, because I mean you're a very small creature and you're pressing something there, and this huge bass-like instrument is suddenly creating huge sound, very interesting, and it's like almost like magic. Very, very interesting experience, and I really thought that it's extremely complex thing to play the piano, and it actually is, but I felt really scared of that perspective, and I don't know, probably this is why I started playing the piano as late as I was probably 15 or something like that. And what I said in one of the previous videos, that I actually started playing on a wooden board because I'm not privileged enough to come from financially secure background, and we don't have money for piano, and I started by this wooden board that I drew keys on it. I actually went and measured the size of actual keys, and then I drew them on this board. I wrote down the names of the notes, and I started playing on this board, and I was imagining the sound. And later, occasionally I had the chance to check what I imagined on an actual piano, and to have a feedback if what I imagine is correct. And basically this developed my musical mind additionally, and later I started taking lessons, and the piano teacher was actually dreadful, but it gave me the chance to have access to actual piano. And later, when my sister wanted to start playing piano too, and she was little back then, and my mom, our mom, managed to buy us a piano, and this is how I started actually playing the piano. And my mom was very surprised how I was able to immediately start playing something, of course simple, but still it's right from scratch. And I told her that I've been exercising on the wooden board, and she was very impressed. And probably one of the first actual pieces that I learned, besides of course the exercises, was Heart of Steel by Manowar. And yeah, it was not so complex from technical perspective, so I could manage this in a relatively short period of time. And I was mostly composing my own music, and I wasn't learning so many other songs, but of course I was trying to figure out some tracks by my favorite bands at the given time, and it was pretty much the time when I got much into Dream Theater, and of course it's extremely challenging thing to play, and it got me moving pretty quickly, I think, and Kevin Moore became a huge inspiration for me, of course, along with keyboard players like Rick Wakeman and Jeffrey Downes from Asia, and also Tony McAlpine, because he's, I don't know if I mean, he's probably equally good in guitar and piano, and this is probably why when I actually started involving into more complex music and more technically demanding, the first thing that I attempted to start learning is Etude by Chopin, which Tony places in Freedom to Fly record, which is my favorite album of Tony McAlpine. I mean, he's also a huge inspiration to me. And at a certain point I played a lot of Toto, actually, because I still am a huge fan of Toto, and this is how I managed to get involved into a bit of jazz here and there, because you know, if you have listened to Toto, that there is a lot of jazzy stuff involved, especially in the piano. And yeah, this is the background of my keyboard playing, which is still evolving, and I have a lot more to learn in this field. Did the change in geography affect your creativity in any way, good or bad? We know of your health struggles, but moving from Bulgaria to the Czech Republic, so close in distance, are they worlds apart politically and culturally? And if so, has that inspired your art? Well, this is a very difficult question, and I'm sure that once I start answering, a lot of people will start hitting the dislike button and will start pointing fingers at me. But nevertheless, I'm happy that I left Bulgaria, and I have absolutely no intention to go back. Of course, I really miss my friends there, and my mother and my sister, but I mean, it's too high price to pay for me to go back there, especially when I have health problems. The healthcare system in Bulgaria is just so corrupted and dysfunctional that it's just ridiculous, and it applies to many other things in this country, and I just don't want to get into details because it's useless negativity. Since I live here in the Czech Republic, and I've been living here before, it's not the first time, and I also have some Czech heritage, and I feel at the right place here, more or less, and my life improved significantly. Not just because healthcare, because it's much better, but also the quality of life is much better as well. And if you're not struggling with mundane daily problems and trying to survive, and you're experiencing all kinds of difficulties and problems to secure your basic living, you can't be creative, and it wears you out in a very painful way, and it's very destructive, and it was not possible for me to thrive at all there. And now here I'm able to actually bloom a little bit, at least, because all of this damage that happened to me when I was living in Bulgaria, it took its toll on me, and these are things that can't heal just like that. And yeah, the higher quality of life, of course, influences my creativity, because I'm calmer. I'm not worried how I will end up tomorrow, and will I have money for food and so forth. And I'm able to obtain some equipment, which instruments that allows me to expand my creativity even more, and I'm not limited, and therefore my sound palette is getting bigger, and it allows me to express my musical thoughts in a much more interesting and diverse way. And from that perspective, it's a very positive change to me, and I think it will be seen in my future videos and my future albums as well. Yes, I think this answers the question. So this was the last question for this video, and as I said, if you like what I do, please consider supporting me on Patreon up here and on the links down in the description. See you next time and stay safe. Bye bye.